Kansans are always delighted when there's snow in Colorado, assuming that the water will then come to our state. Let me start with Mr. Hassinger. A bit of follow-up with Senator Gardner. You said in your commentary that 30% of our farms are not getting that technology. Is that a Nebraska statistic? And how, based upon this conversation we're having about how we determine who has broadband and who doesn't, how does one reach that conclusion or that specific number?
Yeah, Senator, so first of all, to the earlier comment, that's the definition as it was described as 25 down and 3 up from that standpoint. Let me give you the source, specific source. It is from USDA, specifically the National Agricultural Statistics Service released its Farm Computer Usage and Ownership Report in August, and that's where that data is coming from. Just slightly under 30% of the farms do not have that access under the definition that I just described.
Will then lend itself to a definition of farms, which is an agriculture question. I see your equipment in Kansas a lot. I'm familiar with Lindsay Corporation. I would highlight for my colleagues on the committee that our subcommittee on data, consumer protection and data security will have a hearing next Tuesday, November the 14th, to focus on data usage practices specifically for farms and innovative opportunities to improve yield, sustainability, and interconnection among our rural farmers. So we're continuing this conversation. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Hassinger, what is the most prominent challenging barriers to successfully connecting rural communities and farms to high-speed broadband? And what are the programs, FCC, we would have Universal Service Fund, USDA, we'd have rural development dollars. What is it that the federal government, what is it that federal government not doing that Congress needs to do?
Yeah, Senator, I feel very comfortable representing where the value and the opportunity is in front of us. I'm going to have to pause and say my expertise and knowledge in terms of how to exactly solve it is still further behind from that standpoint. So what I really want to reinforce is the value that I can see through the technology that companies like ours is bringing and the need for it. But I'll have to pause on answering specifically your question.
Let me also ask you a question about something you said. 16% of the acres are irrigation yield, but represent 44% of the yields. Mm-hmm. Is that a Nebraska? That's a national?
No, that's a national number also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me ask you, Ms. Cipher, in regard to veterans issues, what you described with your father is very compelling. Understand the value of that circumstance. What role did the VA play in your father's capability to access that technology, if any?
Right. So the VA's role was to bring him the device, and then I hooked it up. Right. And that was 5 years ago. So the VA today, I would hope, frankly, they're not very communicative. Maybe that will change shortly about their broadband efforts. But I would encourage them to have efforts where they are making sure that the individuals that they're working with do have access at home, not just for the health reasons, the health IoT, but jobs and economy and everything else.
Ms. Cipher or Mr. Adcock, you have any understanding of the difference between what the private sector and the VA, what differences they may have in regard to what they're doing to provide in-home health care through technology? Private sector ahead of the VA, Mr. Adcock, any sense of that?
I would say that the VA is a leader in telehealth, obviously. I can tell you about our program. We actually, when we're doing remote patient monitoring, we go in and check the cell signal in the area, in the home where it's going to be used to make sure that it's going to qualify for being able to utilize the equipment. So we make sure that that cellular service is available by utilizing the local providers and the regional providers in our state. And if for some reason it's not available, we work to try to see if there's a wired option available. If that's not available, we talk to the service providers and let them know where there are coverage lapses so that we can look down the road to be able to enhance that coverage. I will tell you that because of remote patient monitoring not needing as much of the high speed, we're able to deliver that service in more areas throughout the state.
When you say more areas, Mr. Hassinger and I talked about the 30% of acres not, the broadband, the technology not available. What's your experience for when this service is not available to patients who need it because of lack of service?
For remote patient monitoring, again, it can run on a 3G connection. So there are very few patients that we've come across, probably less than 1%, that we can't use our remote patient monitoring solution on. Now, if you start talking about being able to do video visits into the home, which is coming, we're going to run into a lot more issues, a lot more connectivity issues in the homes. Right now, we're able to meet most of those issues, whether it's in the home or in the school, wherever it might need to be.
Do you have a sense of what percentage would be unable to have video?
I do not at this point, but that's something I can look and get back to you.
Thanks to all the panelists for your testimony.
Thanks.